As a teenager, I went with my family to a place in the Poconos Mountains with a lovely lake and a superb trout stream and 4,000 acres of protected land full of trails. I have long been concerned about the disappearance of open space. In New Jersey, it's come almost to the end. We were always concerned about what the preserved land 100 years from now would do for the community. I had a considerable background in land conservation, in forestry, so I thought I would go to DNR Greenway, called them up and introduced myself and said I would like to volunteer.
So one of the first people I met here at DNR Greenway was John Rassweiler, almost 25 years ago. As a businessman, he has a very sharp focus. He understands, with an organization like DNR Greenway, not just the core work we do, but also the business of the work we do.
I've done everything for DNR Greenway I can think of. Part of my job was to be sure that the property that we were conserving was properly defined with a map. My first work was to go onto the property with whatever usually hazy town maps, which were 100 years old. And then I, using a compass and a 100-foot tape, tried to track down the actual original lines.
We were a young organization in a little Sears Roebuck cottage with 5 staff. We really counted on John because he did maps for us. He even did the first computerized maps that we ever did.
As he was involved with mapping and trying to figure out how to accurately represent the real landscape on a map, he just became more and more engaged with all the different important pieces of the landscape. What I remember most about my dad is just his excitement in all these different topics.
But he served on the board at a time when we were developing our governance processes, when we were developing a standard of what it meant to be a DNR Greenway trustee.
John took up a very important leadership role as the keeper of the strategic vision and the business plan that would be clear, that would be focused, and that would keep DNR Greenway on track on the pathway to preservation.
The Johnson family owned a piece of property on Rosedale Road in Princeton. It was about 60 acres, and we felt that this ought to be preserved land. First of all, we took 6 acres and built our headquarters there, so DNR Greenway Land Trust. On the far side of the building, you will find playing fields, so we convinced the town to buy into the playing fields. And on the other side is Greenway Meadows, which is 40 acres of open trails. Subsequently, we added 14 acres on the other side of the road, which is now part of the Johnson School, and they use the woods for research and exercise. So that was a big one. Obviously, the DNR Greenway Land Trust building has proved to be a great success.
John was a huge part of the Recreation Board. He brought a business procedures priority to the Recreation Board and to the Recreation Department that was invaluable. Being a recreation department that was in desperate need of playing fields, and John and I spent a fair amount of time trudging through different parcels of property in Princeton, trying to figure out how on earth we could get access to additional field space for the programs that we ran.
One of the things that fascinates me about John is that he's a combination, part scholar, part preservationist, part historian.
John has always loved forests. When I think of him, I think of our walk in the Sourlands. I think about the tree farm that he has in Vermont, where he's preserved many acres of land, and how he really has enjoyed, with land stewardship, being able to help us create bird habitat and trails through the forests. creating the Rassweiler Restoration Forest is a fitting tribute as a place that people can go to think about and be inspired by John's work.
There's a over 1 acre gap in our forest on this preserve, and by putting in native trees and shrubs, we're actually recreating a native forest to support the ecosystem, including the birds and the insects and the other wildlife that are supposed to thrive here.
John knew so much about land preservation. He seemed to know every parcel of land in the details of the acquisition and the stewardship of that land. And I thought, if I could only learn half of what John Rassweiler knows, then I could be an effective trustee.
It's been a great 25 years, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think they appreciate what I've done for them.
And he really just wants to be sure those beautiful places are preserved so that every generation can benefit from them.